Hey guys, I was just going to talk a little bit about this new Tajfun 35A winch, some of the initial things you have to do for the setup of it. One of the things is you have to make sure that the PTO shaft gets cut according to the length of your tractor. So one of the things the manual talks about is when you're done cutting it, you need to have a 20 to 30 millimeter gap here between where this plastic piece comes up and where this meets the yellow piece. What that does is that gives it a little flexibility as it moves so that it doesn't slam up against the end of it or anything like that. So to do that, this is a Mahindra Max26 XLT, and I had to cut about 2 inches off of each side. So it depends on your tractor exactly how much, but you want to cut off the exact same amount on both sides, or very close to the same amount, instead of just cutting it off all of one side. I'm sure there's lots of videos out there that talk about how to cut the PTO shaft down. But you need to cut the same amount. Like, let's say, in my example, I cut 2 inches off each side, so I cut 2 inches off the plastic. I used just a hacksaw to kind of get that done, and then I used a sawzall to cut 2 inches off the metal. I did that on both sides. And then when you're done with that, you need to lube this up. The book says to use graphite grease. And then on top of that, there are some Zerg fittings on this that need done with lithium grease. So there's, on each end, there's one here, and then there's one inside here. So that would be the same on both ends of this as well. And that allows it to connect there. And then there's a diagram in the book of how much overlap is the minimum required. I didn't quite exactly understand how it worked, but I cut it to the minimum that specified, that 20 to 30, to keep it as long as I could for where it overlaps, and it seems to be working fine. Other than that, there are some Zerg fittings on the back here. They've got yellow caps on them, so that makes them easy to find. And then there's 3, I was thinking there was 4, but there's 3 that I see right there. 3 on the back. And then underneath this grate there, that metal grate, there's a chain. When the PTO is running, the chain inside is just constantly spinning, so you need to oil that up. When I bought mine, I greased the Zerg fittings and went and looked at the chain. Everything was oiled, and as soon as I started greasing the Zerg fittings, grease was coming out, so I know that they were done ahead of time. I don't know if that's a vendor thing or if that's something done by the manufacturer, but I would check that before you put it into service. And then the last thing that you need to do is you need to pull the cable out all the way and inspect the cable before using it, because once you use it, it's no longer under warranty. There's a separate video I did for where we pulled out the cable and inspected it. It's a really nice cable that they have on this. It's not going to fray. You know, you think of a metal cable and getting drug over rocks or whatever else, and that it would fray off. But the type of cable they use, I forget what it's called, but it's not going to do that, which is really nice. And it came with 70 meters of it, and it's, I think the 35A is about 8,000 pound pulling force. Next step up was a 45A, and it's about 10,000 pounds. I talked to several people, and the consensus was with these smaller tractors especially, you don't need really that much pulling force more than what this one does, because by the time you get a log like that up, you wouldn't even be able to pull it up with the tractor necessarily. The only issue you would have is if you were trying to pull, you know, maybe 3 logs at a time that were all big size. But if you just pull 1 at a time, you'll be perfectly fine with that for the amount of weight that the tractor can carry out. Hopefully that just gives you guys some ideas on what you got to do when you set it up.